I found my wife cheating with her business partner, and after our divorce, she's claiming I owe her $250, $0 in property and funds from a joint account we never signed over. Now she's threatening to take everything, including our family home worth over $500,000, all while I just discovered she's been secretly planning to run away with it. I never thought I'd end up in a situation where my wife would turn out to be nothing more than a lying, cheating bitch. Honestly, I thought we had a good life, sure. We had our arguments like any couple, but I never imagined she'd be capable of doing what she did. It all started about 2 months ago when I began noticing small things that didn't add up. She was suddenly more secretive with her phone, deleting texts, hiding her screen when I walked into the room. Little things at first, but enough to make me suspicious. I kept telling myself I was overthinking it, but deep down, I knew something was off. Then came the real bombshell. I work in finance, so I tend to keep tabs on our money, especially because is always talking about building our future. One night I decided to check our joint bank account after she went to bed. I wasn't planning to do anything crazy. I just wanted to see if there were any unusual charges or withdrawals. That's when I saw it. A series of transfers and payments I didn't recognize. Large sums of money moving out, mostly to her business partner, Jake. At first, I thought maybe it was some kind of mistake or a business expense I wasn't aware of, but then I looked closer. The biggest shock came when I saw a direct deposit from Jake's account into our joint account, labeled as investment return, but it was more than just a small dividend. It was a substantial amount, more than enough to cover a down payment on a house or a new car. My mind raced. I knew and Jake had been spending a lot of time together lately, but I'd always brushed it off as work-related. Now I couldn't ignore the signs. I felt sick, like I'd been hit with a ton of bricks. My wife, the woman I trusted with everything, was secretly funneling money to her lover. I decided I had to confront her. I waited until she was out shopping with her friends, then I sat her down later that evening. When I asked her about the transfers, she froze for a second, an awkward, guilty silence. Then she started lying, saying it was just business expenses, that Jake was helping her with some startup idea she'd been working on. She looked me straight in the eye and told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. She said I was overreacting, that she loved me, and I was just being insecure. But I knew better. Her face was too defensive, her story too rehearsed. I could see right through her. That confrontation was just the beginning. I could feel the numbness creeping in, but also a burning rage. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly, pretend everything was fine while secretly screwing around and stealing money? I was furious, but I was also heartbroken. I'd always believed in her, in us. Now that belief was shattered. I started digging deeper, pulling out bank statements, emails, even her phone, anything that could give me answers. The more I uncovered, the more I realized this wasn't just an affair. It was a full-blown betrayal that threatened to destroy everything I had built. I'm not going to lie, the emotional toll has been brutal. I've gone from feeling numb to pure rage, then to sadness, and now a strange sense of clarity. I see her for who she really is, selfish, manipulative, and willing to do whatever it takes to get what she wants, including lying, cheating, and stealing from me. It's like I was living with a stranger all along. The worst part: she's been planning to run away with Jake, using her own lies and fake promises to hide her real intentions. I caught her several times sneaking around, making secret calls, and even packing bags. She's a master at deception, but I refuse to be her fool anymore. This is just the start of what I need to do to get my life back on track. After I uncovered everything, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. My mind was racing, trying to process how I had been so blind, so naive. My wife, the woman I thought I knew, was out there actively betraying me, lying, cheating, stealing money, and planning to run away. With her lover, it was like waking up from a nightmare, except this was real life, and it was worse than I could have ever imagined. I sat on the edge of our bed that night, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. Every little moment of happiness we'd shared suddenly felt like a lie. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? How did I not see it coming? My first instinct was to confront her again. I couldn't just let her keep lying to my face. especially when she was already planning her escape. I decided I'd catch her in the act, or at least get her to admit everything. So I set a trap. I knew she'd be at her friend Lisa's house that evening, so I went through her phone, her emails, and even installed a little GPS tracker on her car. Nothing crazy, just enough to know where she was. I wanted to be prepared for anything. When I saw her car pull into Lisa's driveway, I took a deep breath, grabbed my keys, and headed over. What I found when I got there was worse than I expected. Was in Lisa's living room, laughing with Jake, her hand resting on his knee. They looked intimate, comfortable. I could hear the muffled voices from outside, and I knew I had caught her red-handed. My stomach clenched, but I kept my composure. I knocked on the door, and his face instantly went pale. She tried to play it cool, acting like she was surprised to see me. Jake looked annoyed, like I was ruining his fun. Started stammering, trying to come up with some excuse, saying it was just a business meeting, that I was overreacting, that I didn't understand how much she and Jake had been working together. I cut her off before she could finish. I told her I knew everything, about the money, about her plans, about her cheating. Her eyes widened and she threw out a barrage of lies. She said I was paranoid, that Jake was just a business partner, that I was jealous and insecure. She even had the nerve to say I was imagining things, that she loved me, and this was all a big misunderstanding. But I wasn't buying it. I saw her for who she really was. No amount of lies could undo the truth I had uncovered. That moment was a turning point. I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I had to decide what to do next. The betrayal cut so deep, it was like a knife twisting in my chest. I felt anger, betrayal, heartbreak, and a strange sense of numbness all at once. It was clear she had no intention of ending her affair or stopping her plans to run away with Jake. Her actions spoke louder than her words. She was already planning her escape, and I was just a pawn in her game. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her take everything, especially not our family home. That place was more than just bricks and mortar. It was our life, our history. I started consulting a lawyer the very next day. I gathered every piece of evidence I could find, bank statements, emails, texts, and prepared for what was to come. I also began secretly documenting her behavior, just in case I needed proof later. It was a cold, calculated move, but I wasn't about to let her walk away with my life without a fight. The emotional toll was intense. Every time I thought about her sneaking around, planning to leave, I felt like I was losing my mind a little more. But I also knew I couldn't let her see how much she was hurting me. I had to stay strong, even if inside I was falling apart. Deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. The worst was yet to come, but I was determined to fight for what was mine. I wasn't going to let her destroy everything we had without a fight. The next step was to get everything legally sorted: divorce, property, the money, whatever it took to protect myself and take back control of my life. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I spent every spare moment with my lawyer, going over documents, making sure every detail was covered. Of course, kept up her act, acting like she was innocent, claiming she was just stressed, that Jake was just a friend who was helping her with her startup. She even had the nerve to cry and say I was accusing her of something crazy without any real proof. But I knew better. I had the proof, and I wasn't about to let her manipulate me into backing down. Meanwhile, behavior got more brazen. She started pushing back harder, insisting I owed her money, $250 to be exact, because of a joint account that I supposedly signed over to her. That was a complete lie. I never signed anything giving her control over our joint funds, and I knew she was trying to spin some story to justify her theft. She claimed I was holding her back, that she deserved what she was taking because I was an obstacle to her dreams. I could see her true colors shining through. She was spiteful, selfish, and manipulative. One afternoon, she called me furious, demanding that I give her what she's owed, asserting that I was obligated to her because of our marriage. She even said she'd sue me for the property, our family home, which she knew was worth over $500,000. I was stunned. I knew she was trying to scare me into submission, but I also knew I had to stand my ground. I wasn't going to let her take everything I worked for, especially not after all the lies and betrayal. That night, I decided to go over the finances again, digging into the joint account, the property deeds, everything I could find. I discovered that had been secretly planning to run away with Jake for weeks. I found emails where she was discussing escaping after she got her hands on the money. There were messages about renting a place in another state, about disappearing with Jake once she had enough cash. She even made plans to transfer the title of our house into her name, claiming she'd protect her assets so I couldn't take anything away from her. It was like watching a perfect storm unfold. She was not only cheating but actively plotting to steal from me and disappear. I felt a mix of rage and despair. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built? I kept replaying the moments when I trusted her, the times I believed she loved me. It all felt like a lie now, but I also knew I had to act fast. I called my lawyer again, told him everything I had uncovered, and asked him to start the legal process for a temporary restraining order and to secure the house. I didn't want her sneaking off with it or transferring the title without my knowledge. In the meantime, I decided to confront her one last time before things got ugly in court. I arranged to meet her at her apartment, alone, no lawyers, just us. I wanted to hear her try to deny everything face to face to see if she'd crack under pressure. When she saw me walk in, her eyes flickered with that familiar bitchy glare. She tried to act calm, but I could see her nerves behind her fake smile. "I know what you're doing," I said, voice steady but cold. "I've seen the emails, the transfers, the plans to run away with Jake. You're not just cheating on me, you're stealing from me, planning to leave me with nothing. You think you're smart, but I have enough proof to take everything from you. Our house, the money, everything." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "You're overreacting. You don't have any proof. You're just paranoid as usual. I love you and I'm not going anywhere. You're just jealous because Jake is successful and you're not. You're insecure and that's why you're making up stories." I shook my head. "No, I'm done listening to your lies. You've been caught red-handed. The only thing I regret is ever trusting you in the first place. You've been planning this for weeks, haven't you? Trying to run off with Jake, taking the house, the money, everything we worked for. Well, I'm not going to let you get away with it." She looked furious, her face twisting into a sneer. "You think you can threaten me? You're not the only one with lawyers, you know. I'll fight you every step of the way. You don't have any idea what I'm capable of." I just stared at her, feeling a strange mixture of anger and relief. I knew this was the beginning of a long battle, but I also knew I had the truth on my side. I wasn't going down without a fight. I had enough evidence to prove her plans, and I was ready to take her to court to protect what's mine. The next few weeks would be a mess, but I was determined. I had to get her out of my life, clear my name, and move on, free from the betrayal, lies, and manipulation. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, but now I saw everything clearly. The legal battle was everything I expected and more. Was relentless, throwing every excuse and lie she could think of to try to sway the courts. She insisted I owed her that $250, $0, claimed I was abusing her financially, and accused me of trying to keep her from her destiny. She even went as far as to say I was emotionally abusive, that I didn't support her dreams, and that she deserved her share of the property because I was holding her back. I couldn't believe the audacity. All I wanted was to protect what was rightfully mine, but she was spinning a web of lies to make herself look like the victim. Meanwhile, I was busy gathering every shred of evidence I could find. I had copies of the emails where she discussed her plans to run away with Jake, the transfers of money, the secret messages, everything. I also had witnesses, her friends who confirmed she'd been talking about leaving, her sister who saw her packing bags, and even a neighbor who overheard her discussing the move with Jake. I knew I had a mountain of proof, and I was determined to use it all. The court proceedings dragged on for months. During that time's true nature kept revealing itself. She became more aggressive, more desperate. She started threatening me, saying she'd ruin me if I tried to take her to court. She accused me of trying to control her, of destroying her dreams, and kept insisting she had the right to everything, our house, the money, the joint account, everything. She even hired her own lawyer who tried to twist the facts, claiming I was a controlling, possessive husband who was trying to keep her from her true potential. It was exhausting, but I refused to back down. Then came the day of the hearing. I sat in the courtroom, feeling a mixture of nervousness and determination. I knew this was the moment where everything would be decided. The judge listened carefully to both sides, reviewing all the evidence I presented: bank statements, emails, witness testimonies, even the GPS logs I'd kept. Lawyer did her best to discredit me, but her lies couldn't stand up to the facts. When the judge asked directly about her plans to run away, she hesitated. Her face flushed and she tried to deny it, but the evidence was damning. Finally, the judge ruled in my favor. She granted me a temporary restraining order, preventing from transferring any assets or selling the house. She also ordered an independent valuation of our property, which confirmed the house's worth at over $500,000. The judge emphasized that the evidence proved was attempting to defraud me and that her plans to leave with Jake were serious. It was a huge relief, but I knew this was only the beginning. The final divorce and settlement would still need to be sorted out, and threats to take everything weren't over yet. In the aftermath of the court ruling, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with anger. I had fought tooth and nail to protect what was mine, and I'd won, at least for now. But the emotional scars ran deep. Every time I saw her face, I remembered the lies, the betrayal, the way she'd used me as a pawn in her game. Still, I was proud of myself for standing up and fighting back. I'd learned a lot about trust, deception, and resilience through this mess. I also started to reflect on what I really wanted moving forward. I realized I deserved better, someone who wouldn't lie, cheat, or steal from me. I was tired of being the fool, the one who believed in fairy tales. Now I saw clearly. Sometimes you have to fight for yourself, even if it means losing someone you loved. I decided I would focus on rebuilding my life, on healing, and on making sure I never let anyone do this to me again. The house was secured, the legal battle was in my favor, and I was finally starting to see a way out of this nightmare. But I knew the fight wasn't over until everything was finalized, and its true nature had been fully exposed. The months that followed the court victory were a blur of legal paperwork, emotional exhaustion, and a strange sense of relief. I finally had the restraining order in place and was no longer allowed near the house or our joint accounts. Still, I knew she was stubborn and manipulative enough to find a way around it, so I kept my guard up. I also started working with a financial advisor to protect what was left of our assets, making sure she wouldn't be able to siphon off any more money once the divorce was finalized. Throughout this process, I couldn't help but feel an annoying sense of betrayal that cut deeper than I expected. I kept replaying moments, her smiles, her lies, her pretending to support me, knowing now they were all just masks. I felt humiliated and angry, but also strangely liberated. I had been, yes, but I was finally waking up to the reality that I had been living with a person I didn't truly know. One of the most shocking revelations came when own sister, Sarah, called me. She had always been close to, but she confided that she suspected had been planning her escape for months. She told me had been secretly meeting Jake, hiding money, and even forging documents to transfer ownership of the house. Sarah was devastated, saying she never thought her sister capable of this level of deception. She warned me that was dangerous when cornered and that I needed to be very careful with her. That conversation hit me hard. It made me realize just how deep lies went, how far she was willing to go. To get what she wanted, I knew I had to stay vigilant. I also started seeing a therapist, something I'd avoided before, because I needed to process everything to make sense of the betrayal and rebuild my sense of self. As I got closer to the final divorce hearings, behavior intensified. She became more aggressive, more hostile. She started spreading rumors about me, claiming I was trying to ruin her reputation, that I was abusive, controlling, and manipulative. She even tried to sway some of our mutual friends and family, painting herself as the victim, the wronged wife. It was a classic move, try to turn everyone against me so I'd look like the bad guy in the end. But I had enough evidence and support now. I stayed calm, focused on the facts, and refused to be pulled into her games. I knew that the truth, along with the court's ruling, would speak for itself. Still, the emotional toll was immense. Every day felt like walking a tightrope, balancing the anger, the sadness, and the hope that I could finally put this nightmare behind me. Finally, the divorce was finalized. I got full custody of the house and was ordered to pay me a settlement that reflected her share of the assets, minus her debts and illegal transfers. I felt exhausted but also victorious. I had fought hard for everything and I'd won. The house was now legally mine, and I could finally start rebuilding my life without her shadow looming over me. Looking back, I realize how much I've learned. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. But I also learned that I am stronger than I thought. The pain of betrayal doesn't disappear overnight, but it does fade with time and action. I'm now focused on healing, on finding happiness again, and on making sure I never let someone like get that close to me again. If there's one thing I want others to take from this, it's this. Never ignore the red flags, trust your gut, and fight for yourself, because nobody else will do it for you. Now that everything finally settled, I find myself looking back at the nightmare I went through and realizing how much I've grown. Honestly, I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to go through something this brutal and come out the other side with even a shred of clarity. But I did. I learned the hard way just how dangerous betrayal can be, especially when it comes from someone you trusted with your life. Lies, her manipulations, her blatant theft, none of it just hurt my pride. It almost destroyed my sense of security, my future, everything I had worked so hard for. The one thing I've learned above all is that you can't ever fully trust someone who shows signs of deception. I missed a lot of red flags early on, maybe because I was too comfortable, too blind in love. But that's the lesson I'll carry with me. Listen to your instincts and don't ignore the small things. Because when the big betrayal hits, it hits hard and it can take everything away from you. I also discovered that in the face of betrayal, you have two choices. Let it break you or use it as a catalyst to rebuild stronger. I chose the latter. I've started focusing on myself, my career, my health, my future. I've reconnected with friends I'd pushed aside, and I've learned to trust again, but this time more carefully. I don't regret the pain because it taught me to value myself more. Looking ahead, I know I'll never forget what happened, but I also know I won't let it define me. I'll always be cautious, always aware, but I refuse to live in fear. I want to believe in honesty and loyalty again, but I'll never take it for granted. I'll keep my guard up, sure, but I'll also keep my heart open, just in a smarter way. To anyone out there going through something similar, I'll say this. Don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. Stand up, gather your evidence, and don't let anyone walk all over you. Trust is fragile, but your dignity and self-respect are worth fighting for. Keep your head clear, your emotions in check, and remember, you are stronger than you think. No matter how deep the betrayal, there's always a way to heal and move forward. You just have to be willing to do the work.